Welcome to Happy Homes and Gardens. I'm your host. My name is Daphne Royce. I am a real estate broker, architecture, and interior designer. For thousands of years, music has been created solely by human creativity. Music can now be made using artificial intelligence, a technology that may change music. AbleGen has a breakthrough technology that allows anyone to create their own music in a few simple steps. Let's welcome Conor Brennan-Burke, who is the founder of AbleGen, and let him share some insights with us. Hello, Conor.
Hi, Daphne. Thanks so much for having me today.
Please tell us who you are and what AbleGen does.
Sure, absolutely. Happy to. So I'll start off with what AbleGen does. So what we are building is we are building generative AI tools for music producers. So tools for folks that make music to assist them using AI to make music better, faster, and improve the process overall. Now, who I am is I started playing instruments when I was 10 years old. And so I started off classically trained in oboe. For those who don't know, it's a reed instrument, looks kind of like a clarinet. Very difficult to play. I spent years trying to master that. Classically trained in oboe, and then after mastering oboe, I said, well, this is great, but I have all these pop songs that I want to play for my friends, and you can't really whip out an oboe at parties and show it off to people. And so I started picking up piano, watching YouTube tutorials, kind of messing around with different notes. Taught myself piano from that. And then when I was a kid, I was very into the video games Guitar Hero and Rock Band, and they had a drum set as part of those. And so, after playing for a while, I was like, oh, I can learn drums too and kind of figure out the rhythms. So started off classically trained, picked up some of those. I then moved into producing movie soundtracks. So I had a friend who was a student filmmaker. He asked me to produce his soundtracks for him, picked up GarageBand and some of these other tools. And then pretty soon I said, oh, well, there's these popular electronic artists playing out there. Maybe I should start making that too. And so did that for a number of years, started producing music, and realized that producing music is really, really challenging. It's extremely difficult. I think a lot of us hear a song on the radio and we're like, oh, wow, that sounds cool. The beat's relatively simple. It's pretty danceable. It's probably not that much work. Not realizing that every song that we hear, people are spending hundreds of hours behind the scenes, putting together all the pieces that short note that you hear, somebody spent, listened to it 500 times over and kind of fine-tuned it. And so I went through this process, spent all the time myself, and I said, wow, I wish there was an easier way to do this. And a lot of the stuff I'm doing kind of seems repetitive and seems like, hey, it would be great if there was a way to automate this and I can kind of focus on the creativity rather than fine-tuning every single piece of this. And so that was the inspiration to build something around AI and music. Now, happy to talk about, how we got started and how we started building there, if you'd like.
Do you have a story for me?
Yeah, well, I think, it's interesting kind of how this all came together and started. So, for my background, I talked about, I've played music for 20 years now, classically trained oboe, piano, drums. I, started off making movie soundtracks, produced electronic music. Along the way, was in a band. And then at the same time, I'd been working in tech for a number of years as a PM at different quickly growing startups, and had experience there. And I was really enjoying kind of these two sides of me, right? The music as a passion on the side, and then the tech career, kind of building startups, building new products from scratch at all these different companies. But I was interested in seeing, hey, is there actually an opportunity to fuse these two together? So where do you start off? I saw, kind of looked around for this, saw that there was a hackathon happening in San Francisco where I live around music and AI, and said, all right, well, I think the application deadline was the next day. And I said, all right, well, I don't have a team or a specific idea, but just apply, why not? It's worth a shot. And so applied, and they asked for a GitHub profile link. For anyone who doesn't know, it's, a GitHub profile is basically a profile of yourself as a coder and the things you've worked on. Myself as a non-technical product manager, didn't have a GitHub profile, but I said, all right, well, I'm just going to type in github.com to get through the application, enter in the whole site and see what happens. Got into the hackathon, again, showed up, non-technical PM without a technical team around me, and said, all right, I'm just going to show up, just going to meet some people in music and AI and kind of see where things go. Ended up going to the hackathon and, met a few folks, chatted about some ideas, and then saw a couple of people that were working at a table together and asked, like, hey, can we work together? Can I join? We ended up forming a team from that. which, huge shout out to the rest of my team. I was very lucky to have them on board and to work together on this. And so we ended up building, again, what ended up becoming AbleGen in the course of a weekend. So just a few days, and then, had to bring it to the judges. And 5 minutes before the judges came to us, the product was had a major malfunction and wasn't working. And we said, the judges came and said, all right, well, we want to see, what have you built? And we kind of said, well, give us a few minutes. We need a second. We need a reboot, things like that. And then physically left the room and went outside and just tried to, continue to furiously code it and build it out. Came back in and we're ready to, got a prompt from the judges, ready to play it for them. Clicked the play button on the audio and no audio came out. And our team said, all right, what's happening? Is it a machine learning model issue? And doing all this troubleshooting and technical things. And, the entire, there were 40 different judges and the entire panel of judges kind of waiting there. And then finally, we realized that someone else had accidentally unplugged the speaker that we were hooked up to. And so we kind of replugged in the speaker, played the audio. And the time came where, they were announcing who had done well at the hackathon. Again, I'd never been to a hackathon before outside of work, showed up as a non-technical person without a team. It was like, all right, well, I'm just happy to be here. Our team ended up getting into the top 5 in the finals, which we were shocked by. We went to the finals a few days later and the finals went relatively well. We presented as part of a bunch of different teams. It was in this large venue in San Francisco in front of 1,000 people. It was this huge event with a number of different producers and DJs and folks involved in the industry. And then when announcing the finalists, they said, all right, 3rd place is this team, 2nd place is this other team. We were like, all right, well, we got 4th or 5th. At least we had a good experience. And then our team ended up winning the whole hackathon from that, despite forming while we were there, meeting in person, kind of making this up as we went along, having all the issues that we had along the way. And so we were riding the highs off this hackathon and said, all right, this is exciting. Where should we go from here? And then a day after that, we took it to an AI music meetup and showed it to a few folks as like, oh, this is this cool thing we built in a hackathon. And someone who also had an AI music startup came up to us after the hackathon and said, hey, I actually want to acquire your company. And excuse me, we don't have a company. We built this over a weekend at a hackathon. And he said, no, this is really innovative technology. We have this much larger startup. We're really interested in purchasing you in the space. And can we go into M&A discussions and start talking about that? Here's my contact. And it was kind of this watershed moment for our team where, we built this thing over a weekend. How far do you take it? Getting an exit after a hackathon is pretty good. And we were certainly tempted to do that. But I think ultimately it came down to there's a lot of opportunity in this space, and there's opportunity to just completely transform how people make music and what they create and build tools for creators. And I think, myself and the rest of the team said, we actually really want to build here. We really think there's something. We really think there's, again, thinking back to myself when I was first producing, and all the challenges I went through, there's thousands of people like that all over the world that just want to create, and we want to enable that. And we actually want to be part of that and build it. And so made the decision to not sell the company. I quit my job a week after that, decided to work on this full time. We've recruited a bunch of other team members, and we've been building it ever since.
How did you come on AbleGen, the name? And also, how many members do you have right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So AbleGen, the name is so Ableton Live is the largest, one of the largest DAWs, kind of music creation platforms. And so it's kind of a play on words there. AbleGen, it's rather than Ableton, it's AbleGen, and then we enable everyone to generate music. So we felt like this was something that would enable more folks to create music. And then in terms of team members, so we have our initial cohort of 4 folks from the hackathon, and then we also have 4 new team members that we recently brought on, and many more to come. So we're excited to continue to grow the company. We're interviewing a bunch of folks right now. If anybody is listening to this, is interested in what we're building and would like to support, we are hiring right now, and also looking at folks for different roles. And so very actively kind of building out this future of music. And so I would encourage anybody who's interested to reach out and get in touch with us.
Well, I do like to know how to make music in the past. You say hundreds of hours to make music, and given the involvement of the equipment, instruments, people, and costs. I'd like to know more about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to kind of simplify it I know there's probably a lot of listeners that we have that don't necessarily have experience with making music and music production. So we'll do kind of an analogy. So let's say you're a chef, right? And you have a restaurant and you want to, and you're not just trying to produce, fast food like everybody else. You have a unique restaurant. You want to build special food and special flavors that kind of set you apart from all the other restaurants out there. So what's really important is you're probably going to want great ingredients, right? You're going to want, truffles from France and salt from wherever, and special animals that are from different places around the world. I think a lot of restaurants, they kind of pride themselves on the ingredients, and then you take those ingredients and you spice them and prepare them, and what you end up with is a finished dish that's a mixture of all these different ingredients and spices. Now, when you think about getting those ingredients, you can buy them from a store. You probably need to get relationships with suppliers. You probably need to know somebody that will, ship you those truffle mushrooms from France or wherever you're getting from. It takes a lot of time to get all those ingredients, but ultimately that's something where you can have it be really special with your restaurant. Now, when you think about a music producer, those ingredients are like the different elements of the song that they're putting together. So every song that you hear, most songs nowadays, a lot of it is not things where they're playing a guitar and they're just recording whatever they're playing. A lot of it is, they take a software instrument from here, they'll take a drum sound from here, they'll take a loop from somewhere else that they'll then chop up. Sometimes they'll even take pieces of other songs and they kind of recombine them. And so it's this completely different way of making music, which is really exciting. And I think we've all benefited from that and benefited from the creativity. There are hit songs that you can create right now on a laptop. You don't even need a studio equipment. But the problem with that is, if you want to get these sounds and these samples and these ingredients, as a normal person, you need to, either first record it yourself, which again, we talked about, studio time is expensive. It's very expensive to actually record it. If you want a sound of an antique piano, well, where am I going to find one of those, right? So you can record it yourself. You can use software instruments, which are kind of software tools that emulate the sounds of different instruments. And those are great. You can imagine that as like you have some tool in the kitchen, like an egg beater or a blender or something else that you can combine these different pieces and create unique dough or ingredients. Or you can go out and try to buy these samples and these ingredients. You can go out and buy a drum sound or a flute sound and then chop that up and put it in. Now, the problem with that is that, number one, maybe the sound you're looking for doesn't exist, right? Maybe you want something special, you want something unique, you want something that's fresh, and it's actually not out there. Nobody's ever created it before. If you wanted to, if you were in a restaurant and you're like, hey, I want a berry that has an umami flavor, right? Well, that doesn't exist to the best of my knowledge, right? Or you're like, oh, I want, chicken that tastes like beef tenderloin. Well, I don't think that exists, right? That's not anywhere. And yeah, maybe if you were raising the animals yourself, you could create something like that, or raising the plants, but it's time consuming and expensive, and definitely out of reach of normal people. And so first of all, whatever you're looking for might not exist. The second problem is that, imagine you're this master chef and you go to the grocery store and you just pick out the ingredients from there, and, the standard chicken, the standard beef, the standard whatever. The problem is you're suddenly using ingredients that everybody else is using, right? And if you go to a nice restaurant, what's fancy about it sometimes is they're like, oh, we have, this special olives that are imported from this one place in Italy. Like, there's an element of it that it's unique and it's special and it's different. And that's exactly what you want when you're creating music too, right? You don't want to use the same sounds as everybody else. And so that's a problem right now, because you, as a producer, you want to create something unique and special, and you're just drawing on the exact same palette as everybody else. The other interesting nuance, I don't think this exists in the restaurant industry, but in the music industry, there's also legal risk. And so if I use a sound that's similar enough to an existing song out there, there's a chance that I try to upload it to Apple Music and then it gets flagged for copyright. And they say, well, actually, it sounds too much like this other song. They uploaded it first, you can't use it. And so I encountered that problem firsthand. There are amazing tools out there now where you can go and find samples and search for them and download them. But a lot of times, like, it was hard to find what I was looking for, or it didn't exist. Or I was like, well, I could use this thing that's really cool and really popular, but everybody else is looking at the exact same samples as me. And so I don't want something that sounds derivative or have a copyright risk. And so that's kind of the problem that we set out to solve at AbleGen is we saw these options and said, well, you could recreate a lot of that with AI and change it around.
How flexible is AI generation?
Sure. So what we're doing now, when we talked about that problem that we have of, hey, how do we get these samples? How do we make them unique? How do we make them special? We actually replace that process with AI. So for folks who have used Midjourney, or if you've used Dolly, things for images, you can just type in, I want a picture of this, I want a picture of that, and then you get a picture of it. And for music, what we're doing is we're saying, hey, we don't want to replace the producer. We don't want to replace the person creating the music. We actually want to give them tools. So rather than giving you an entire dish, we're giving you an ingredient, or, if you were a painter, we give you a certain color. And so what we've done is we've created an AI tool where just describing in natural language, you can actually generate any sound you want. You could say, oh, I want a jazzy flute that will go well with a bass line. I want a polka sample that goes well with a metal track, right? I want a kick drum that sounds like somebody hitting a table with a hammer or something. You can generate any sound you want and just describe it in text. And then another thing you can do is you could say, hey, I'm starting off with this particular sound and I want to change this. So I have this certain drum sound, but I want to make it sound more metallic. Or I have this guitar sound, but I want to make it sound electric instead of acoustic. And so our goal is, rather than when I used to produce, I would spend all this time I knew what needed to be done, but then it takes 5 hours looking up YouTube tutorials and messing around with knobs and dials. And, you download a new plugin and all this different software just to try to capture the sound in my head. And what we've done instead is you just tell the AI, you're like, this is what I want to hear. Or even if you can't describe it, here's a starting point, change this in this way. And then you get something brand new. The other thing we're really excited about with that is the AI that we have, it's non-deterministic. So it'll generate a new sound every single time. You could do the exact same description. You could say, hey, I want something that sounds like Hotline Bling, like Drake, but in a country version instead. And you'll get, a single instrument that does that. But it'll sound different every time you put in the prompt. And so you as a producer, now, again, back to our analogy, you have ingredients that nobody else in the world has. You have samples that no one else can touch. And that's something we're really excited about to unlock the creativity of different folks.
It sounds fancy and creative. How does AbleGen change the music production process?
Yeah, so when you think about the process of today, I was talking to a friend who was just starting producing. You come up with an idea. You're like, oh, I want this track to sound like this. And then how do you actually get the sound out there? And like I said before, it's, you download this plugin from here, and you open up the software and there's a million different knobs and you have to twist them all and you don't know what most of the knobs do. And then, 5 hours later, you're frustrated. You've watched a million YouTube videos, you're over caffeinated, it's 3 in the morning and you want to go to sleep and you're like, all right, forget about this, gonna move on. Or even if it does work, you end up spending a lot of time on these kind of very manual things. And our vision for the future of that process is, we want to have AI be something that unlocks creativity for people. We don't want to replace the artist. We want to make your life easier. So in all that 5 hours you spent just fiddling around with knobs just to get the sound in your head, what if you just describe it and you just have the AI figure out all of that? You kind of take away all this complexity, and you as the human, you focus on the creativity. So you focus on the ideas you have. And, sometimes what we found that's really exciting about our process is that, people will type in something, they'll hear it, and they're like, oh, that's what I'm looking for, but actually I like it in this way better. And then they'll type in something else, and then, it'll change the sound in that way. And you kind of enter into this dialogue with the computer where rather than spending all of this time trying to just capture something, you have this dialogue back and forth. You're like, oh, I create something. Oh, now I have this new spark of inspiration. All right, now I create something else like that. So that's very much where we're starting. We have a vision for where we want to go in the future, and we think there's a lot of opportunities for AI to give you recommendations or give you suggestions for your track as well. But for now, we're just focused on how do you get the sound that you want in your head out into your laptop and then start being able to play around with it.
Can we get the sound in our head out and we create the music in certain themes using certain instruments or with the existing audio samples?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, we're not integrated with Neuralink yet. So one day, hopefully, we will be, and you can literally go thought to audio. But right now, yeah, I mean, you can describe any. We have a model that's been trained on everything from classical music to electronic music. You can generate drum and bass. You can generate house. You can generate techno. You can generate classical samples. You can generate movie soundtracks. You can generate country. And what we do is, we'll take whatever you're looking for. So let's use that example of, hey, I want something that sounds like Hotline Bling by Drake, but more like country. We're actually not, we don't want to veer into copyright there. So we're not going to duplicate any artist track. What we'll do is say, okay, well, what's the vibe of Hotline Bling, right? What's the style of it? What's the energy of it? What kind of sounds is Hotline Bling using generally? What is the BPM, the speed of it, all of these different elements. And then how can we tweak a few of those and make it country instead? And then how can we generate, you could choose either the entire track where you say, hey, I want the whole thing, the drums, the bass, the guitars, and then you can split out each sample. Or you could say, oh, I only want one instrument. I only want, the drums. I want to hear those alone. And so we're really excited about this because again, you don't need to necessarily know music terminology. You just describe a vibe or you give us an example, we'll build it off of there. So that's kind of text to audio. The other thing we talked about is audio to audio. So we have a tool that's a stem splitter. So you can start off with you pick a song, that you're like, okay, I like this song, but I only want the guitar. How do I pull that? It's like if you had a finished, a cake or something, and you're like, well, I only want the eggs from the cake. How do I pull that out? It's really hard to do now. If you're a producer, it's really difficult to isolate a sound and pull it out of there. But we actually use AI to let you do that. So if you start off with audio and you're like, hey, I actually just want this one piece of it, I want to pull it out. Great. Okay, you can have that. And then you can edit it how you want. You could type in, using text, hey, I want to change the sample this way. I want to change it that way. And so we're excited about both, kind of text to audio and then also audio to audio, because sometimes you can't describe exactly what you want. You need a starting point. So we're starting off with text to audio. The tools that we're building will allow us to go that full range of getting a starting point and then editing it however you want.
Sounds exciting. When there's a copyright issues with the music created in AbleGen, how do you make sure the artists and creators are making something unique and not copy others?
Absolutely. So this is, as I'm sure all your listeners know, Daphne, this is a very hot topic right now in all AI generation. I mean, we see in the news every day of the New York Times is suing OpenAI for, ChatGPT, and artists are for Midjourney, they're concerned that it's trained on their work. And there's this kind of back and forth in conversation. So first of all, in the training data, our machine learning model is trained on only non-copyrighted music. So it's music that we have the rights to. We're not training on Taylor Swift or anything else like that. And what that allows us to do is, okay, so let's say, again, using that example of a real user asked us for this the other day. They're like, all right, I want Hotline Bling by Drake, but country version. Well, our model has no idea who Drake is, right? Our model doesn't know the exact notes to Hotline Bling. We're not stealing anything there. But what we can do is capture the vibe of that track, and our model understands what the energy of that track is, what are the different elements. And it would be like if I was describing that to you and I'm like, well, Hotline Bling is like 130 BPM, key of B flat, uses these different elements, it's got some R&B elements, and describe it to you. And you can think about that. That's kind of the way that our model is understanding it. And so it's not trained on any copyrighted data. It doesn't understand who artists are, any of those things. It's taking that vibe and extracting it, which is fundamentally the same as a human explaining it to another. Now so that's the input side. Now on the generation side, as an artist, you want to create something that's unique, right? You want those ingredients that you imagine if you had a restaurant and you're like, wow, I'm the only person in the world that has, this bottle of wine or this olive or anything else. I mean, that's pretty special. That's a unique experience. And it's similar with music, right? You want things that are unique. You want creativity. I think a lot of folks, are concerned about AI just meaning that people can make whatever they want and everyone's going to copy each other. We actually take the opposite approach. We're like, hey, this is actually an incredible tool because rather than everybody going to the same sample library and downloading the same samples and using those, you actually have things on your laptop that don't exist anywhere else in the world. So you have sounds that nobody else in the world has. And because our model is non-deterministic, it doesn't generate the same thing twice ever, right? There's so many different possible options. I guess theoretically, there's 1 in a billion chance that it could be similar. But in general, every time it's generating something, it's going to be slightly different than the time it came before. And so we're really excited about this because it's just, you can 10, 100, 1000x the number of different options out there for producers to play with. And I think it's going to unlock a lot of creativity for people, and make this faster, make it cheaper, make it easier to make music. And what we'll ultimately end up with is better and more creative music.
Is the AbleGen affordable for the users?
Is it affordable? Yeah. So you hear about this magical thing, right? If you could go to a chef in your restaurant and say, "Hey, I can create ingredients for you that nobody else in the world has," right? It's completely unique. I mean, you would think about, "Oh, I'd pay thousands of dollars for that." It sounds really special. It sounds like something that that I want, that I'd keep away from everybody else. And if you look at the existing solutions, people spend hundreds up to thousands of dollars buying these sample packs, right? They go online and they're not even the only person that has it, right? They go and they say, "Okay, well, I'm gonna buy this, this collection of drum sounds," when everybody else in the world can buy those exact same ones, and you're paying for something that's derivative. We are actually offering, our current pricing, depending on when folks are watching this, but our current pricing that we're looking at is, first of all, you get 20 generations a month for free. Generate anything you want, type it in text. It's completely free. We believe in creators. We believe in artists. We want to keep it available. And then if you pay $10 a month, you get 500 generations. And again, 500 times that the AI will create something that nobody else in the world has, right? We think that that's really exciting, and that's something that is a game changer for a lot of artists and a lot of producers, and gives them tools that, again, there hasn't been any way to get that before now. And so we're really excited to see what folks do with this.
Very interesting. And who is the ideal users for AbleGen?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when you think about different tools, right, there's the Midjourneys of the world, there's different AI image tools. There's a lot of different tools out there, and most of them are directed for your everyday consumer, right? And most of them, it's like, okay, I can describe a picture, great. I can generate something in Midjourney. I can generate something in ChatGPT, and that's exciting. And there are tools out there that are meant for kind of your everyday user that, oh, I want to generate a full song. Okay, give me a song that, is about this, and it'll generate it from scratch. And that's exciting. Look, we support all innovation in the space. We support everybody working in that. I think the difference here and the approach that we're taking is, again, for myself, I played music for 20 years now. I'm very deep into it. It's something that I'm really excited about, and I've had a lot of experience in. And we want to make tools for your everyday consumer and everybody to go around it. But we also want to look at folks that, hey, they've spent their entire career building and producing and making it, and actually they want kind of human control over. So again, back to our restaurant example, do you want to generate an entire dish from scratch, or do you want to be like, oh, this, here are almonds from Italy you bring in, here's spices that nobody else has, and then you as the human get to choose how they combine as the dish. That is kind of our vision, and that's what we want to have. So we are focused on folks that, we can give these ingredients to, and then they'll reassemble them into something greater. And we're focused on making their lives easier, streamlining their processes, making it simpler, and getting that creativity out of their head, and ultimately empowering the creators. We don't want to replace people that create music, right? We want to give them tools to make 10x as much music for 10x cheaper. And so our ideal producer, our ideal user is someone who, is currently a producer or starting off their producing journey, kind of has some sense of what they're doing, but wants to make it faster and make it better. And we believe that our AI tools will enable them to do that.
What is your vision for future of AbleGen and the music production industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that right now, I think 20 years from now, we are going to look back at this era of making music and think like, wow, that was crazy that we ever did it that way. It was wild that anyone ever made anything, given how it was. I feel like 30 years from now, there's going to be, in the same way where you have some kind of old school DJs that still spin vinyl, and they're like, oh, it's a skill to be able to spin vinyl. There will be folks 30 years from now that still make music using all of these tools that we have today, and it'll be kind of a unique experience, or something that sets them apart from other folks, where it's like, wow, you really created it manually? That's crazy. Like, you went into a DAW, you used Ableton Live with all the software plugins, you didn't use AI at all. Like, it's very retro. It's like riding a horse instead of driving a car. And so I think our vision for the future of music is completely different than today's workflow. right now it's very much first of all, it's a super solitary process. I mean, you spend, hours and hours and hours in front of a laptop just listening to something. You're like, I don't know if it sounds good or not, right? Like half of it is training your ear to understand that. Maybe you're lucky enough to have a friend, but a lot of the users that we talk to, spend all day in front of Ableton or Logic Pro or even GarageBand just trying to produce something. And then you spend so much time kind of with this fine tuning and tweaking where, you have this cool idea, but then getting from that idea to something that actually sounds good, most of that time is just spent like polishing it and tweaking it and updating it. And our vision for the future is you can use AI to close that loop between the idea and then what it sounds like in the end and make it much more iterative. That's the first thing is, how do you get what's in your head out into music? The second thing is, what if you could have a kind of co-producer and imagine somebody sitting next to you, right, that can give you feedback on your track and say, ooh, I like this, or I like that, or I want this vibe. I mean, most great artists you hear, it doesn't just appear out of their heads, right? It's like a team in the studio that are exchanging ideas together. And so we see a lot of opportunity with that. Like, I would love to be able to ask an AI, like, what else do you think this track needs? Does it need, an extra drum fill? Should I add a shaker? Should I add another synthesizer? Should I change the lead or the melody in that way? And then it gives me some options and says, hey, maybe you should consider this, you should consider that, or here's 5 different options for how you can complete this track. I think that that's kind of where we're headed, is that it becomes much more of a conversation and much more focused on the ideas and the creativity and being able to work with that than, okay, let me figure out exactly what does this knob do and how much to turn it, right? I was talking to one of our users when we first created this. He was like, I would love to get to a world where I don't need to know what these hundreds of different knobs do. And I mean, folks like Rick Rubin, one of the best producers and, kind of folks that worked with artists of all time, he said that. He's like, I have no technical skills, I have no technical ability. What I'm focused on is helping the artist understand what they want to create. I don't know what any of the knobs do. And I think one day we can all be like Rick Rubin, right? Where like, it just makes music. I'm not quite sure how, but there's a creative genius locked inside all of us that's looking to come out. A quick anecdote on that. We had someone when we first created this, and he said, this is great, you guys are making this. I have fire ideas and there's so much music I want to create, but my friends won't even let me in the studio. They're afraid of how fire my ideas are. And so we're hoping one day, that guy will not need his friends to let him in the studio. He can just play with AbleGen and create something from scratch.
Okay, so I'm looking from the outside in and just wondering if they create music, would that be able to generate music sheets so they can put in the group as a band?
Yeah, you could certainly do that. So right now, what we've done is built a end-to-end pipeline. So you start off with a text prompt where you say, hey, I want, a synthesizer that's a respace for drum and bass beat that's 170 BPM in the key of F minor, follows these chords. And then you'll get that as an audio output. But then what you can do is we have a tool to transform that into MIDI. Now, MIDI is the kind of language that computers use. It's similar to sheet music, but it's just used for digital production instead. And then you could take those MIDI and say, oh, I want to turn that into sheet music. Boom, take MIDI, turn it into sheet music, and then you can play whatever notes it was playing before. So we're not building that MIDI to sheet music conversion directly, but there are plenty of tools available online where you could just click convert. And that's something else that we're really excited about is we want to empower the user, and by going from a text sample to something that you can actually play with and mess around with and be like, oh, I like this, but I don't like this note. Like, let me move this note down a half step. Or, oh, I like this, but I want to, transpose it from F minor to A minor instead. Or I want to speed it up, slow it down. I want to change the notes that it's playing. I think there's this fun world where rather than just getting the finished product, you actually have something that you can play with and kind of mess around with and go in and edit and leave your human touches over it rather than just getting a full AI creation.
Wonderful. Congratulations. AbleGen recently had a major launch with some of the most downloads and highest rating on the platform. This is really exciting news. What makes AbleGen unique?
Yeah, well, thanks so much, Stephanie. The launch is something we are really excited about. we had an initial kind of alpha launch on maxforlive.com that has gone really well, and we've gotten really great feedback from users. Again, we're very focused on kind of the hardcore producer creator community. And so this was Ableton Live, which is one of the biggest DAWs. It's kind of a tool for creating music, and we built a plugin for that, which generation, and have really appreciated the response we've gotten back from the community. I think if I had to say what makes us unique, again, I am pro creator tools. There are a lot of great companies and great folks building in this industry, and I think there's a place for you want a background music for your YouTube video. Great, there's a tool for that. You want music that you could just send to your friend that you think is funny in 2 seconds and doesn't have to be super high quality. There's apps for that too. I think our difference is we are focusing on the folks that are kind of as deep into this as you can be. So we think about there's a maturity curve here where you're just starting off, you don't know anything about music. Well, you probably shouldn't use us because there's lots of other fun tools and apps and you can play with. It's kind of a consumer use case. And then on the other extreme, you're the like DJ Mustard or one of these huge producers that, okay, they have so much money and so many tools. They're not really feeling the pain because they could just buy whatever they want and bring it in. We're kind of more focused on the person in the middle where like you've started your music journey, you know something about how this music is being created. You've encountered the pain firsthand. You realize how difficult it is, but you want to be involved as the creator and you want to, have these pieces that you can reassemble. And now we can enable you to do that, like I said, 10x cheaper and 10x faster than what we had before. And so thank you. We are really excited about the launch. I think, again, our differentiator is like our first product was a Max for Live device instead of Ableton Live. I'm sure most users don't know what that is, but it's basically as niche as you can get of building tools for the most hardcore users that really want to experiment with new tools. And I think we've started off with that rather than just general users. We've started off with like, let's target the real music nerds and the folks who love kind of playing around with new tools and trying out things and build some strength there and build things that they would actually use. Rather than kind of starting from hey, I don't know anything about music. I just want to, generate a track for my YouTube video, which again is a great use case. A lot of people building in that. I think what sets us apart is we are musicians building for other musicians. And so we're really excited to see, just the response we've gotten back from the community and the outpouring of support.
Sounds very user friendly.
Yeah, it's been exciting. I think it's been interesting for a lot of folks in music that maybe they haven't used ChatGPT or other of these tools, and they're like, wait, you can just type in text and then get audit. What? Like, how does that work? And so it's been exciting to see folks playing with it and just see all the kind of crazy things that people we've seen a lot of folks generate interesting things that we never would have expected, and in different languages too. I mean, we're global. We have users all over the world, and our model understands all major languages, and so that's been really exciting to see what people create that even we never could have pictured.
So how many languages do you have right now?
I mean, 80 plus. We have
Wow.
all the major languages spoken in the world. English. I mean, English generations are going to be the best out of all of them. We have users that will type in prompts in French and Turkish and Arabic and so yeah, I mean we're global. I think music production is global, right? Music is a universal language, and given that we're focused on generating instrumentals instead of vocals, we have it's something where everybody can kind of create music. Even within our team, we've got folks from 3 different countries on the team, and so we're excited to we've got producers based in Uruguay and Germany and Denmark and UK and kind of all over. And so it's been exciting to see that outpouring and just see how global music has become. It's a universal human thing. Everybody loves music.
Tell me a little bit about your background behind you, that little square things with things in it.
Oh, sure. Well, this is we kind of think of this as like the record case of the future, but kind of reimagined with AI. So that's our AbleGen AI, that's our logo, and then wanted to kind of represent that we see this as the future, right? I mean, records are a human creation and something that that all of us, kind of maybe our parents listen to or our grandparents listen to, and even though AI is there, it's still the same fundamental thing underneath. It's the same creativity. Technology changes, But ultimately, we all love to dance and sing and hear great music and create, and that's what we really care about. Is so it's an analogy, right? It's like AI plus the records is a combination of old and new, and in some ways we're kind of bringing it back, right? It's about the creativity, not about the tools.
I like the logo. It looks like feature, our feature.
Yeah. It's a combination of a G for Gen and then also a knob. So you have all these knobs and dials that you turn as part of the producing process. And so we're replacing that with generation.
Great. And please tell us about your website and how people contact you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the website is ablegen.ai. We are, as I mentioned, in a limited beta right now, but I'm very excited to onboard more users. If you're a producer, if you're a DJ, get in touch with us. We'd love to continue to work with you. Any folks that are interested in chatting with me, Conor at AbleGen.ai is the best contact for me. And feel free to reach out. Like I said, we're looking for, we're bringing on additional folks now to support the team. We're also working with producers and DJs and folks that are working in music. And so we would love to work with you.
I will link your website to this interview.
Sounds great.
Okay. Thank you so much, Conor. We had a great time with you here. Just listen to your exciting processing news and other information about music creation.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this. Thanks again, Daphne. This is a great conversation, and really enjoyed the interview and chatting on it.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Really appreciate it.
You too.
All right, thanks. All right, have a good one.